Welcome to 16th meeting for fiscal year 2014 of the Milton Planning Board. And it is February 13th, and we are in the Blue Conference Room. And I'm Alex Whiteside, the chairman. And with me are
William Clark, Planning Director.
Emily Ennis, member.
Michael Kelly, member.
Ed Duffy, member.
all right. So now we're going to,
Jean.
Jean. Now we're going to do the minutes. We're going to meet again in 2 weeks,
On the 27th.
on the 27th. Probably upstairs, unless the selectmen have decided to preempt us again.
They're on Tuesday.
What?
They're on the Tuesday.
No.
You're on the 27th, they're on the 25th,
Today is a Thursday and the selectmen are meeting.
because of the snow.
It's snowing, so they're meeting?
It's snow day last week.
Oh, okay. All right, well, that makes sense. The minutes of January 9th look pretty good with this change. Why don't you guys look at it? And it's a little confusing, but Emily made a comment which had to do with medical marijuana.
So, just in the minutes, the medical marijuana discussion is under old business instead of under zoning, where the zoning discussion where it belongs. So I just asked that it be moved up to be under zoning. And Jean, if my handwriting's not readable, just give me a shout, I'll walk you through it.
All right. Did we do, I don't think we're ready to do the other minutes.
All right, so hold those.
Now,
Would you like them?
how about
moved and
signing,
seconded?
what?
Moved and seconded on the.
Approval.
Yes.
All,
Second.
okay, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. So they're approved. Now we're going to do citizens speak, and we don't want citizens to speak on the zoning articles that are coming up for public hearing at 7. And in fact, if a citizen were to speak before the public hearing, it would not be part of the public hearing. And so it behooves people to wait till 7 to speak on any of the zoning articles that they see fit to be heard on. Are there any other citizens who want to speak on a matter other than the zoning articles? All right, I see none. We will pass on to the next item, which is signing our decision with respect to the tree on the lot at 35 Elliott Street.
3650. 36-50.
36 to 50 Elliott Street.
It's under construction.
But we approved the replacement of a tree after quite a thorough review. And they waited to cut down the tree until after its removal had been approved. And all those were good things. I mean, removing the tree was not necessarily a good thing, but it seemed to be necessary. So you want us to sign 3 of these, Bill?
Please.
Do they all have to be in blue ink? Or just one?
Just the first signature. If that's in blue ink, then the rest are fine. once you finish signing, I think that we will get the public hearing on the zoning matters is advertised at 7. It's now 6:45, so we're going to do 15 minutes of other stuff. Oh, 6:45, we're there.
You have a whole minute.
All right, so we're not going to do other stuff.
Would you like a master plan update to fill up your 1 minute?
Yeah, 1 minute.
All right, so the big item is the March 1st forum, which is being held at Fuller Village from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. It will be posted for both the Master Plan Committee and the Board of Selectmen, and I hope that you will all be there, and as many members of the public as are wanting to come will be there. We will have childcare available, we will have food available, and we are also having door prizes, including Red Sox tickets donated by a member of the Master Plan Committee. So it should be good. It should be very good. We're going to be testing a little bit of the goals that we did in the vision session and then moving forward to actually figuring out strategies for implementing those goals according to what people in town want. So it's going to be a very exciting session. I hope you all can make it.
All right, well, this is good. Now, the housing production plan, the selectmen at their last meeting appointed Selectman Katie Conlon to work with Emily Innes to look at the town parcels which might be available for development and to discuss them and report back to the board.
That's right. We're going to try and do our first meeting. We're checking schedules to see if we can meet next week. I owe you a progress report on the 27th, and we'll just see how far we get by that point.
And if people have ideas about town-owned parcels that might be suitable for comprehensive permit development, they should send Bill Clark an email, and he will
Send it forward to me and Katie, yes?
send it on.
Can I make a comment about that?
You're spending too much time.
I really like all the comments that have been coming in for it. You've seen the number of emails that I've sent to you in the last 2 days. Everybody thinks that I get to take and make these votes. Mr. Clark, I hope you take and vote. I don't get a vote.
Yeah, but you get to.
I get to give them to you.
You get to offer opinions.
Okay.
Now, we're going to commence a public hearing that was duly advertised, having to do with a number of articles, zoning articles, which will appear on the May town meeting warrant. And because they're zoning articles, the planning board is required by law to hold a public hearing and at the town meeting to offer a recommendation to the town meeting as to what the planning board thinks the town meeting should do on the articles. And the articles include a reformatting of the zoning bylaws, which is a housekeeping matter. It has to do with a new and better index. There is an article which would amend the cluster development section of the bylaw. There is an article which would create a new section of having to do with medical marijuana facilities. There is a cautionary article which would provide for a medical marijuana facility siting moratorium in the event that the siting article that the planning board is proposing doesn't pass.
Or if the AG rejects it.
Or if the Attorney General rejects it, yes. There is an article on agricultural nursery landscaping development, which is a citizen's petition having to do with the Thayer Nursery. There is an article to amend the financial penalty for zoning violations under Section 11 of the zoning bylaws, which would provide a fine for continued zoning violations. If a violation continues for 2 weeks after the violator has been cited, that 2-week period would constitute a new offense. And then if another 2 weeks went by and the zoning violation hadn't been addressed, then that 2-week period would constitute a new offense. The final one is a citizen's petition having to do with attached condominium residence development, which has to do with a piece of land off Pleasant Street and Randolph Avenue on the access road side. And the proposal is to authorize the construction of up to 11 condominium units on a 35,000 square foot parcel. Now, it seems to me that what I would like to do is, just because I know that the Thayer Nursery, well, first let's say that the weather is bad, and so we are going to, at the conclusion of the session tonight, we are going to continue this hearing on all the articles until 2 weeks from today at 6:45, and we will then take further comment on all the articles, and then with any luck we will either make our recommendation or determine when we're going to make our recommendation. So for people who didn't like the weather or felt that the meeting might have been canceled, there will be a continued opportunity to be heard on these articles in 2 weeks. In order to, it seems to me that I'm going to just ask for a show of hands to find out which articles have people here to address them. And if we have a few articles with only 1 or 2 people, we might do those before articles with more people. Does anyone care about the reformatting of the, well, let's put it another way. Does anyone want to be heard on the proposal to reformat the index for the zoning bylaws? Does anyone want to be heard on the cluster development change? Does anyone want to be heard about medical marijuana? Does anyone want to be heard about the medical marijuana facilities moratorium? Does anyone want to be heard on the agricultural nursery landscaping development, which would have to do with their nursery? All right, so got about 5 people for that. Does anyone want to be heard on the article to amend the financial penalty? Does anyone want to be heard on the citizens petition with respect to condominium residence development, which would be on the site next to the access road? So we will go to the agricultural nursery landscaping development article. We will, as I say, we will take, the hearing is going to be continued for 2 weeks, and we will take additional comment in 2 weeks for all the articles. So, and people who want to speak should, I will recognize them in due course. I am going to let Mr. Corcoran, who I believe has a presentation to make, start. Anything else?
That's my desktop upstairs.
Look at them guys.
What?
See how beautiful it is? Yeah, there we go.
Can't see.
It was not staying. Yeah, he's doing this little thing.
And speak into the microphone so that we can pick this up on the tape. We're being recorded tonight, so bear that in mind.
Gee, did you pass out the popcorn?
Do we need all the lights off, or just,
We should probably,
Can you get it to turn
Bill,
on?
can you modulate these things? Who was responsible for this room?
The lighting was not my responsibility, I just picked the colors.
All right, is that good or bad? I guess it's,
that's okay.
Leave it on, leave it on.
Try that. I think it'll be fine if we leave that on in the background, but not. So, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Ned Corcoran, attorney here in Milton, here on behalf of the citizens who have filed a petition on behalf of Thayer Nursery. I'm joined by Maggie Oldfield, who is family of the proprietors of Thayer Nursery. I was to have been joined by Jim DeSell, who is an engineer who's drawn a draft of site plan that I'll show, and Heidi Coast, who is a landscape architect based in Wellesley, who has spent a fair amount of time redesigning the site to make it more neighbor-friendly. They are each unavailable to be here because of the snow. The snow is much more significant as you head out to Metro West than it is here on the south side of Boston. We're here because we're requesting the town meeting to recognize and reinstitute some uses that have taken place at Thayer Nursery over the last number of decades, and specifically with respect to landscaping and related retail functions. And we're here, I must say, because Thayer Nursery has, from time to time, not paid attention as it might to good neighbor relations with its direct abutters. And I need to say right up front that this is an issue that has arisen largely because the abutters have been right with respect to the impacts of a number of the operations that Thayer has undertaken with respect to the use of their property at the corner of Hillside and Forest Street. And Thayer Nursery is committed to a significant expenditure of dollars in a new site plan and a new method of operation that we think will result in a presence that will be much more neighbor-friendly. And we're requesting, obviously, that the town meeting support those changes. So, Bill, if you can move forward. This is some quick aerial photo. Here's the primary site at Forest Street, Hillside Street. This is what most people know of Thayer. There's a secondary site over here where they have composting and some other operations, but most of the real concerns and issues that have been raised are right in this area. Next. This is a slightly closer view of the Hillside property, the main property. This is their main driveway entrance. As you enter, there's a sort of a retail operation here, another one here. This is the main barn. Josh Oldfield lives here, another Oldfield lives here, and between the families, there are 4 residences that are on a combination of the properties. Next. This is the area across the street where Hillside is here. There's a composting pile and some other operations on the site. Reasonably buffered, although there will be some additional bufferings that we're working on with respect to neighbor concerns over there. Next. And here's really a close-up, more of a close-up of the Hillside Street, of the main operations itself. And this area is really what as I've come to understand, the area that is really sort of offensive in terms of a range of things. There are 3 abutters on the easterly line. This is Parkwood Drive, right to the east over here. 2 swimming pools proximate to the boundary line, and there is an offending pile of mulch. There are other mulch piles that are stored here from time to time, and the prevailing wind goes this way. So on a Saturday afternoon, you can imagine that the area over here would be besieged by a combination of odor, dust, and noise from operation. This whole area is a dense, packed, stone, gravel parking area that is almost acts like pavement, except that it gets very dusty. So as trucks pull in and out, the dust goes. And this barn is a tall structure with a wooden sides, and I think this whole area acts like an echo chamber, so that as activity takes place, noise just is a crescendo that builds from that. Next, this is looking at it from above Hillside Street. This is that same property line. This is the southerly property line. You see how trucks and everything is stored. This is, I took this photo down from Google Earth. The date is August 24, 2013. So this would be, how it would look middle of the summer. Next. And then this is sort of the closer up of that northwesterly corner with the entryway in. I know that one of the concerns is how large trucks enter and exit for deliveries. Forest Street is a fairly narrow street. One of the things that Thayer does try to do with respect to its deliveries is to require the deliveries to come from Route 28 over here to the east, up Hillside, and then in and swing in, and then back out and out. Truck traffic is not allowed on Chickatobit and ought not to be allowed down Forest, at least to this point. It turns out that at least on occasion, truckers listening to Siri or other similar navigational systems will be directed in off of Route 128 by Chickatobit and come in and down Forest. It's the more direct route, but they do their best, and they will work harder to encourage trucks to come in this way and make that easy turn in. Next. This is difficult to see. I've got copies of site plans for any who are interested. I know I gave several here. This is sort of an existing conditions plan, hard to see here, but there are some levels of plantings, as you saw along the edge here, but this is all hard packed. This is where operations for the landscaping business generally take place. And so there's a plan to relocate those. Next. This is plan of the area on the other side of Hillside. Hard to tell, but that is a compost operation. There's some soil management here, stone store here, nursery stock here and here, and there are, some plantings on both sides. There's a plan to bolster that, and we'll be back later with a stronger site plan for this area. Next. So again, this area and the significant changes that we're proposing, and that the Thayer Nursery is agreeing to undertake as part of a comprehensive site plan and special permit, would be related to all of the activities in here. Next. There are the mulch piles and hard surface along that sort of boundary line. Next. So the idea is really to do a couple of things. It's to soften the hard surfaces, remove as much of that gravel pack as possible so that we eliminate that echo sense, to plant a 65-foot vegetated buffer between the property line and here with a strong line of white pines. There's a berm here that will be infilled with much more plantings. There's really not much here in terms of visible buffer. This is a softer area because there are nursery plantings here. But the idea is to plant here. White pines are native, they're fast-growing, they're deer-resistant, and they'll be planted at significant height, 10 to 14 feet, and then the ability to grow quickly to provide a visible screen and a significant amount of other planting in front. There'll be some individual plants, arborvitae types, planted around the sides of the barn so that they muffle any sound that might bounce off the walls of the barn, either coming in, going off the wall. And then the real other key is to relocate, and then a separate a berm along here and a 20-foot wide planting here with white pines and other similar treatments here. On this property, there's a significant wooded area, but that is deciduous, and I think the canopy is somewhat high, and so the notion of capturing sound from going underneath that canopy and then capturing it on a year-round basis is certainly important. And then, more importantly, or as important, is to relocate operations to this side, using the barn as a natural barrier to sound and to dust, extending significantly the distance between these sidelines and any operations over here. Two large material bins are proposed for here really for their mulch operations. It's sort of right up against Josh Oldfield's back door almost, but they will be placed here. There'll be smaller bins along this side which will be used to store other materials, stone and those types of things. And then the operations, the loading and the unloading would take place in here. A couple of other features are to eliminate as much as possible the notion of backing up, particularly on this side, is that trucks will come in, they'll be, currently I think when they come in the evening, they're washed here. We're going to convert the interior of the barn, which is used in the winter for wood, firewood sales and storage. That will be converted. There will be some floor drains put in with oil and material traps, and so that all cleaning and washing of vehicles will take place in the barn. That will be a much quieter operation. There's a tool shed here Most of the tool loading and unloading will happen from the inside of the barn, but some will occur out here, but the trucks will drive this way, get loaded, and then back over here, park in the evening. There won't be any backing in here. Any material pallets, things that can't be stored in bins here would otherwise also be stored as much as possible inside the barn during the operations of the landscaping business. So large vehicles that now tend to come in, back in here, unload, and then come out, now enter back here, and then come out this way, again, restricting the timing of the operations. So it is a really significant commitment, I think, on behalf of the Oldfields to respond today to issues that over time they have responded to in some ways and in some ways have not. I think they have, quite frankly, focused on the growth of their business and the competition from other landscapers in town and how to compete with other landscapers of town, and quite frankly have not paid attention nearly as well as they should have to what the impacts of those operations have had on their immediate abutters. I have spoken to most of the abutters. I understand that there are some who are directly opposed to any change now. There are some that are very supportive, and there are some who tend to be neutral, sort of acting like Switzerland, in that they would like to see a nice outcome. I'm not sure they trust the process. They think if this can be put in place with very tight controls under a very strict special permit process that we've laid out in the bylaw, that they could live with that. And so, more broadly, as you step, beyond the immediate butters, people on both sides, across the street or along the property line, I think there's fairly significant support for preserving the Oldfields and the Thayer Nursery business. Again, with appropriate controls. So it's sort of a trust but verify, put things in place, and perhaps build into a site plan and special permit process things like 1 year, 3 year, 5 year checkbacks to make sure that operations are as they're being represented and as they're being permitted, so that the town has the direct ability to keep the nursery's feet to the fire. Next, Bill. So these are a couple of examples of how material storage bins would look, with a couple of exceptions. They would be similar to this, either up against the barn or up against Josh Oldfield's back fence, with two exceptions. There would be a wooden structure that would go above, a further extension of a wall, and then an angled semi-roof that would come forward over the bins, and then also attached would be roll-down tarps that would be porous, and that they would allow odors to dissipate slowly. One of the things about mulch, and particularly the mulch that the Oldfields use, that is a combination of compost and bark, it's organic, it does break down, and so it needs to be aired. But if it is dissipating slowly and properly, and that is being managed properly, then we think the odors will be localized and will be dissipated completely before they leave the site. Next. It's another example of the type of bins that would be proposed. but with, again, that angled cover, and then the rolls down. Next, it's another example, and I think there's one or two more, so next. And this is sort of a example of how you can use some denser growth to help buffer, create a visual buffer, to create a muffler for noise, and to create a long stretch of green area that would capture dust and/or odor before it left the property. Next. And so that's the basis of the presentation. We are open to questions. We appreciate your attention, and we ask the town for its support. And I have copies of these site plans for members of the board.
Okay.
And other copies if others.
Kept an extra one.
This next one.
So the first, there are three plans. One is the sort of existing conditions plan. The second is the plan of the lot across the street, and the third is the proposed conditions plan that would be presumably modified through the process, but which would be attached to, in substantial same form to that special permit.
Now, it's my understanding that you have a site plan, that you have a landscape architect design, and you have a concept, and that what you would do is, with the concept, you would modify the proposed zoning so that, in effect, the concept would have to be constructed.
Yes.
And that's, would require a zoning amendment, or an amendment to the article which is currently proposed, but since it would further restrict rather than expand, it probably could be done. Now, in receiving comments, we have this proposal, and you should probably take a sidebar chair, because I don't think that we're not, this isn't the same as a subdivision. We're not here to necessarily discuss the concept plan unless people wanted to discuss the concept plan. And if they have questions about the concept plan, they know who to ask, because you're going to be right there. But we are going to receive comments from people who want to be heard on the zoning article, and they can, that's what we're going to do. So who wants to be heard on this zoning article? Yes, sir.
Good evening, my name is Matthew Dunn.
Well, you're, take the microphone up a little bit, just so that we get all right, fine.
Good evening, my name is Matthew Dunn. I represent Philip Joenning and John Rowe. They are the owners of 23 Parkwood Drive in Milton. They are direct abutters to Thayer Nursery, and they've asked me to speak on their behalf before the planning board in opposition to the proposed citizens petition that proposes an amendment to the zoning bylaws of the town. As an initial matter, I think it's important to point out that what is being asked of the residents of the town and the planning board is a spot zoning amendment to the bylaws of the town, which is designed exclusively to provide a purely economic benefit to Thayer Nursery that isn't available to any other citizen or property owner in the town of Milton. It's also being proposed in response to a thorough and thought-out decision by the zoning Board of Appeals of the town of Milton on two separate administrative appeals brought by my clients. The first had to do with Thayer Nursery's use of the property to conduct the landscaping and construction business, a part of which is proposed in the citizens petition. And another has to do with Thayer Nursery's use of the property to store bulk quantities of kiln-dried firewood that is imported from out of state and shipped to different locations from Thayer's property to various towns or locations in towns outside of Milton. To understand the basis of my client's opposition, it's important to understand the location where Thayer Nursery is situated, the history of the zoning bylaws of the town, and the history of the zoning bylaws as they've been applied to Thayer Nursery over the years. Thayer Nursery is situated in the Residence AA District, which is designated for purely residential single-family dwellings with certain allowable accessory uses. There's also a carve-out that's allowed for a nursery business, and that's in the bylaws, has always been in the bylaws, to allow for a nursery to operate in that district. Now, if the planning board is not familiar, that it's located in the Scotswood district or neighborhood of Milton, which is very rural and residential. And the bylaws are designed to keep it that way. And Thayer Nursery was originally allowed to operate the nursery pursuant to a special permit that was issued by the Zoning Board of Appeal in 1967. That permitted Thayer Nursery to run a nursery, and as part of the nursery business, there was a accessory landscaping component to it that the Zoning Board of Appeal recognized right away, and it can be found in the 1967 decision, that it was something that needed to be monitored because it was inconsistent with the residential character of the Scotswood neighborhood. And so through the special permit process through the years, the town has tried to keep a thumb on the activities that are being undertaken by Thayer. And the activities that Thayer has shown throughout the years that it hasn't complied with the special permit restrictions that were applied in a number of special permits starting with 1967. 1967 permit, like I said, contemplated landscaping. The landscaping component of the business has consistently grown throughout the years. The 1967 permit also was designed to apply a special permit to a single parcel of property in the Scotswood district to allow for a nursery, which does have an agricultural component which would be consistent with the neighborhood. Since then, the Thayer Nursery has acquired 4 separate parcels, has expanded the commercial activities onto those parcels, has expanded the size and intensity of those commercial activities in the Scotswood neighborhood, to the point where in 2002, a number of abutters brought complaints about Thayer Nursery's landscaping activities. And the Zoning Board of Appeal recognized that Thayer Nursery was at that point operating a large-scale general commercial landscaping operation that was inconsistent with what was originally contemplated in the 1967 permit. To quote the Zoning Board of Appeal, it stated that the size and intensity of the general commercial landscaping operation had expanded far beyond that which was appropriate for its normal nursery operation at the time of the 1967 special permit. So the nursery operation itself was only allowed in this residential district by a special permit, and there was particular restrictions that were placed upon it. And those restrictions have been consistently violated, even past 2002, which is what precipitated my client's zoning enforcement request in 2013. Even beyond 2002, the landscaping and construction business and the firewood sales business in this residential district continued to expand, to the point where now it's the nursery component of the business, by the Oldfield's own testimony before the Zoning Board of Appeal, comprises only 20% of its business. The remaining 80% is dedicated to commercial landscaping and contracting, as well as the sale of retail products such as kiln-dried firewood, furniture, pottery, and other household items. So you have a full-scale commercial operation being operated on this site that in a zoning district that has been intended since 1938 to be dedicated to residential uses, that already has a carve-out for special permits for something that would be consistent with the neighborhood. So my clients have asked me to point out that the proposed residential, the proposed citizens petition does not seek to preserve any type of farm or nursery. And I think you need to look at the stated purpose or the proposed purpose of the amendment, and none of them are accurate or will accomplish, or the amendment won't accomplish any of the stated purposes, and I'd like to go through why that's so. One of the stated purposes is that it would preserve the commercial tax base of the town, and that's actually inaccurate, and it does the exact opposite, which is why my clients oppose, in part, the citizens petition. Not only would the amendment endorse their nursery's extension of commercial uses, these uses would erode the historic residential character of the Scottswood neighborhood. But more broadly, they opposed the amendment because it would harm the entire town. That is because it would sanction their nurseries, what has been allowed to sidestep the true commercial real estate, true commercial real estate tax obligations, and perpetuate the fallacy that their nursery is operating a farm, when the Zoning Board of Appeal, since at least 2002, has recognized that the farm is no longer the primary purpose of the property, that's dedicated to other commercial purposes. Their nursery's use of the property, to be specific, includes its use as a staging area for a large-scale off-site commercial landscaping and construction business, as well as a base for its storage of kiln-dried firewood. Again, that's a business that imports kiln-dried firewood from Vermont by the truckload. There's I have a photo of an 18-wheel truck making a delivery of that firewood, and sells it outside of Milton by the cord in large dump trucks that are stored on the property and filled there. Now, again, these two uses were the subject of the Zoning Board of Appeals hearings over 5 months. The initial hearing was held in May, concluded in September. That was what prohibited the landscaping and construction businesses from the property. Thayer had a full opportunity, citizens had a full opportunity to comment on those commercial activities on the property, and in response, the board found that they should be prescribed from the Scottswoods neighborhood. Same thing with the firewood sales business that's being operated on the property. That was also prescribed by the ZBA after a full hearing over 2 sessions in January of this year. So this citizens petition is in direct response to those decisions. In which case the board on both occasions found that the commercial uses, rather than the traditional nursery, would now occupy the majority of their nursery's property. As I indicated, the nursery comprises 20% of the current business. The remaining 80% is dedicated to commercial landscaping, contracting, and the sale of commercial items. it's estimated that the non-farm related business that Thayer Nursery operates on the property generates somewhere between $1.5 and $2 million in annual revenue for Thayer Nursery. Despite this commercial success, however, Thayer Nursery paid approximately $6,096.99 in commercial real estate for fiscal year 2014. That's because it continues to enjoy the farm exemption from the town that drastically reduces its annual real estate tax obligation to a level far below that applied to neighboring residential parcels that are one-fifth its size. For example, Thayer Nursery owns or controls approximately 5.36 acres of land that is assessed at $1.8 million. But the farm exemption, even though the primary purpose is no longer agriculture, excludes almost over $500,000, $537,805 of that amount from Thayer Nursery's real estate tax base. As such, Thayer Nursery paid $6,000, as I indicated, $6,000, a little over $6,000 in commercial real estate tax for a total of $21,655.11 in real estate taxes total for fiscal year 2014. Now, to compare that, that's 5.363 acres of property pays a total of $21,655.11. Compare that to the abutters who own 0.918 acres, less than 1 acre, but are taxed at the residential rate of pay $11,052.13 in fiscal year 2014. So the town is actually, by permitting the landscaping and commercial business, the town is actually, on this parcel, the town is actually losing out on real estate taxes that would be available to it. Moreover, the size and intensity of the commercial landscaping and firewood sales businesses at Thayer Nursery drive down the residential property values of direct abutters and those in the general vicinity of Thayer Nursery's property, thereby decreasing the residential real estate tax revenue to the town. In undertaking these ventures, Thayer employs large dump trucks, trailers, front-end loaders, and other machinery on its property. The use of such machinery and equipment causes loud noises, sizable vibrations, and emits noxious and offensive odors and dust. Thayer Nursery also uses its property to store crushed stone, sand, prefabricated stone entries, large slabs of granite, pallets of stone, large concrete drainage pipes, prefabricated steel manhole covers, mulch, loam, fertilizer, and again, bulk quantities of kiln-dried firewood. The mulch emits, has been stated previously, offensive odors and smells throughout the neighborhood. These conditions, which would be allowed under the proposed amendment, deteriorate the assessed value of abutting homeowners and, again, the tax base of the town. Together, these facts illustrate that the proposed amendment serves no public purpose whatsoever. It certainly would not generate commercial tax revenues for the town. To the contrary, it would significantly decrease the town's real estate tax base by sanctioning an inappropriate agricultural exemption where Thayer Nursery is really using its property for non-farm related commercial purposes. It would also further drive down the residential property values in the area. Furthermore, there's no rational or legitimate connection can be drawn between the public's welfare and any of the other ostensible purposes presented in the citizens' petition. And those proposed municipal benefits are that Thayer Nursery, if it is allowed to operate its landscaping on the property, will preserve the viability of the agricultural and nursery uses of the property. That's a difficult connection to make, and given the fact that the landscaping business would actually occupy property that would detract from the rural character of the neighborhood. Another proposed purpose is that it contributes to the preservation of the rural character of the town, contributes to the preservation of open space, and preserves employment. And as I'm going to indicate, none of those are accurate. That's not going to, the proposed amendment would accomplish none of those. First, Thayer Nursery has successfully run a nursery business on its property for decades without the need for a landscaping business of the size and intensity that the citizens' petition would allow. Second, the proposed amendment would expand commercial ventures in the bucolic Scots Woods neighborhood that would eliminate open space and erode rather than preserve the rural character of the town. Third, there is no evidence that allowing the proposed amendment would preserve employment. That is because Thayer Nursery can easily move its commercial activities to a different location and still offer the very same commercial services that it offers today. There are a number of landscaping companies in the town of Milton that have been required to move off-site, and they continue to operate at a profitable rate, and Thayer Nursery certainly could do the same. There's simply no need for Thayer Nursery to base its commercial operations in the Scotswoods district. That fact alone illustrates that the proposed amendment is sought only to preserve the economic benefit afforded to Thayer Nursery by the farm exemption erroneously provided for its commercial ventures in its current location. Finally, as Milton has already invested a substantial amount of time, money, and energy towards the creation of a master plan, the piecemeal approach to changing local zoning proposed in the citizens' petition is inconsistent with the town's long-term objectives. In closing, the proposed amendment to the bylaws presented in the citizens' petition serves absolutely no public purpose. It harms the town by decreasing its tax base, is inconsistent with the town's long-term planning objectives, and is designed to exclusively bestow an economic benefit on a single property owner. As such, this board should recommend that town meeting not approve the zoning amendment proposed in it. Thank you very much.
All right. Now, we've had two presentations. Does the board have any questions for either of the presenters? Yes.
I have a question about this building, Ned. What's that building? It's not labeled.
That is a store, that is a greenhouse.
It's the greenhouse, all greenhouse?
Behind the store, it's all a greenhouse.
Thank you.
I have a question. How many trucks, loaders, bobcats are there on the site now? Welcome. Introduce yourself for the viewing audience.
I'm Maggie Oldfield, 237 Hillside. Currently, we have 6 trucks, 1 van, 4 bobcats, and an excavator, mini excavator. Of which one of the trucks is my brother's personal vehicle.
Okay. What is the, how much kiln-dried firewood do you bring in? How many 18-wheelers of kiln-dried firewood come in annually?
It's sort of hard to predict because every season is different depending on the weather. I would say a very good year would be about 1 trailer load a week.
During the season?
During the season, it's kind of hard to say when the season starts and when the season ends. For instance, it's February now, and it's been a cold, snowy February, but we have not had a delivery in over 2 weeks. But it could start middle of September through the end of February, on average.
All right, people are in the dark now. What's the, yes, Mike?
So you're saying September through February, you get about 1 trailer load a
Yeah,
week?
yeah. Again, not at the beginning of September, because everyone is still coming back from summer vacation, middle to end of September. Our prime time really is October, November, December.
Yes.
So if none of the firewood is stored in the barn, your plan is to renovate the barn to be used as to wash the vehicles in and they have the water and all. Where would the wood be stored if that plan goes into place?
The landscaping and the wood are sort of a little bit off-season of
Okay.
each other, so right now, we have, it's about a 40 by 80 building. So right now, we do have along one side of the barn, all the pallets of bagged goods that we've brought in for the winter, and then the firewood is pushed up to the back. So there is room now, we still store, even with the wood there and the bagged goods, we could get 2 trucks, and right now there are 2 Bobcats there.
Now, a question for you, Ned. Mr. Dunn has suggested that this is spot zoning, and that it is illegal spot zoning. What do you have to say about that?
I think a couple of things. One is that I think that if it were to be considered spot zoning, I think it is legal as opposed to illegal spot zoning. I think there are significant benefits to the town. I think the issue of the tax is an interesting one, because I think if the landscaping and commercial type of ventures were to be included and authorized by the town, then certainly that would not be protected from an agricultural exemption under the local property tax perspective, but that the operation would be subject to the more significant tax, would be a significant tax benefit to the town. I think more generally, this is an overlay, and there is an exemption from the issue of spot zoning in the state's zoning statutes that deal with zoning overlays of properties that exceed 60,000 square feet. This is a property that is in combination 8 acres. It's almost 5 acres here on the corner of Hillside and Forest, and then across the street, it's another 2 to 3 acres. So I think towns are allowed to zone from an overlay perspective for a mix of uses, properties that exceed 60,000 square feet, and that's the statutory exemption from the issue of spot zoning.
Okay, would you give us a little memo on the legal basis for what you say?
Sure.
That would be useful. And I guess we give Mr. Dunn something to do. We'd like copies of the various permits. Just send them to Mr. Clark, and he will be thrilled to receive them, especially electronically.
If admittedly, most of the business right now, 80% is landscape, construction, commercial sales, why isn't the property presently taxed at a commercial rate?
I don't know. I mean, that's an issue for the town assessors and the town tax people. I've only been involved with this property since October, November. I personally am not involved in any of the processes before the Zoning Board of Appeals. I'm not involved in any of the issues around the town's taxing policies, but I think that would be a question certainly for the town.
Now, let me there have been some people who have arrived late. In fact, I saw Mr. O'Neill and Mr. Sullivan. And we did, at the beginning of the process, determine that we would do this first. The other articles not having raised a great deal of interest at this hearing. But we are going to be continuing this hearing 2 weeks from today, and we're going to, if people's interest in the other articles increases, they will be pleased to hear from them then. And if they want to wait until we finish this section of the we'll call it the Thayer Nursery hearing, just for convenience sake. And do you want to go tell them what
They were standing there as you said that.
they were listening to it? Okay. So that's how we're running the hearing. It's 2 weeks from today, we're going to be continuing it, and tonight we're going to hear from anyone who wants to be heard. And we have Mr. Dunn is now available for questions, as well as Mr. Corcoran. So if you have questions with your comments, feel free to ask them. Who else wants to be heard on this matter? Yes, sir.
Paul Freeman, live at 619 Harland. I arrived late, so I apologize for that, but my question is, and you may have discussed it previously, but with the plan that as I see it, it would appear that we're moving the operation from its current location over to the hillside property, and where I'm on a butter on the back. Is that not the case?
No. Nothing that is taking place at the property on Hillside and Forest is being moved to the other property across the street. I know you're a butter on
Okay.
that side.
So any amendment would not authorize or allow further construction or changes to that property?
The zoning, as I understand it, is going to be revised under one, I think that there is going to be a proposal that the zoning as proposed be revised to basically zone these concepts, to require that these concepts be what ends up on the site. And so the hearing, zoning were to pass, the planning board would then have a hearing, and the zoning would provide strictures and standards for the planning board in granting a special permit. That's the way, what I understand of this site plan is the beginning of a process by which the plan will basically be zoned.
But there are two sites.
Well, both sides,
Right,
both
he's
sites would.
He's wanting to know the operations from one site being moved to the other, and as I understand, the answer is no.
Yeah, and it may be premature. I just want to make sure I understand the process.
And when the zoning, I mean, the zoning would basically say that you can't do that. I mean, it would say that you can't shift your loading operations onto the site next door. I mean, this is, I think, what the planning board would like, because the last thing we want is a wide-open zoning proposal where people can ask for whatever they want, because this is something the town meeting should determine, not the planning board.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I just, where I walked in late, I just wanted to make sure I understood. And again, that meeting in 2 weeks, I think, should provide some greater clarity. Okay, thanks.
All right, who else wants to be heard on this? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Pamela Hoare. I live at 44 Forest Street. I'm currently the largest direct abutter to this operation. My property is the entire length of their nursery on the south side. I own 2 parcels there. The one directly abutting the nursery is a buildable lot that I've been paying taxes on as a buildable lot for 32 years. And I plan to build a house there for myself, a smaller house, when my children leave. So what basically is happening here is all of the mulch piles, the trucks are all being moved right next to me. And this I find extremely unacceptable. I have 50 feet of buffer right now, and I can still hear the bobcats over that 50 feet. So I just wanted to ask you, why did you choose this area? to move everything.
I think a couple of things. So that on the, watch out, Alex.
So that's my barn.
Oh,
Yeah,
And I'm going to be building
Oh,
to the
this is-
left of the barn, which is right along where all the mulch piles are and where all of the activity will be. So they're basically moving it from one abutter to another abutter, and will be a nightmare.
well, the plan is to really strengthen significantly the planted buffer along this line.
I have a 50-foot buffer right now.
I
and it's
understand
still
that, and we're
outrageously
proposing
noisy.
to strengthen that and also to soften the physical feature of the site. Right now, I agree, it's like an echo chamber. You've got hard pack surfaces and hard wooden barn structures. We're going to soften that to muffle the sound and build berms and plant white pine, which will grow together and will be provide a much better sound barrier than what I think currently exists, which is you have 50 feet of woods, but they're sort of a very high canopy, and a lot of the sound is able to come in underneath. And I think if this barrier is
How
in
deep
place,
is, how wide is this barrier?
20 feet. So
20 feet long or
20
deep?
feet deep along the line with a 4-foot-high.
That's not what that
berm.
shows, 20 feet.
No, that's in existing conditions. That's an existing conditions plan, Bill. So, we're showing 20 feet vegetative. Did you get a set of these?
I did. I just can't stress that this really isn't going to change anything. It's just moving the noise from one place to another. And now I will have even more of the burden. And we'll all still have the same problems. So, thank you. So I
So
oppose,
it's
I
a-
oppose any kind of amending of these bylaws. And the site plan to me is no solution whatsoever.
well, of course, and this is the town meeting, of course, has a number of options, as does the planning board. And the planning board can recommend approval of the article as submitted. It can recommend disapproval of the article, that the town meeting disapprove it, or it can recommend that the article be changed to address issues that have arisen. And you raise issues, and of course, what immediately comes to mind is what they've done along Route 128 in erecting noise walls or a taller berm. But this is, once again, this is not necessarily something that we would do, but if noise migrating onto your property is the issue, if you have a row of white pines and a wall to kill the sound, something to think about, because the planning board, you know, has options, and we will try and do the best we can. And it may not make everyone happy, but as you can see, there is but you have a good point. It would shift the noise from in back to in front and closer to where you might build a house. Of course, if you build your house in back, it would be
It doesn't perk back there. It perks right there.
right up towards,
there.
right.
But it's not even where it's located on the property. We can hear it no matter where the bobcats are. So putting a buffer there really is just a little Band-Aid that's not going to be, I can hear them up in the Blue Hills when I'm hiking, depending on the wind. I can hear the bobcats. But it's not even that, it's the traffic, it's the safety issue in our neighborhood with no sidewalks, and I know you've probably heard this before, but it's a much bigger issue than that. It's the entire area that's It's just so inappropriate to have this kind of business there. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Have you lived there for quite a while?
32 years.
And has it become more of a problem?
Oh, horrible.
So-
It's been horrible. Weekends are ruined. And now I see that they're proposing that they start even earlier on the weekends. Now it's 7 days a week, starting at 7 a.m. instead of 7:30. I have people that visit me on Sundays and say, "What is that noise? It sounds like a construction site," and it is. It's terrible.
Has this always been the situation for 32 years, or?
Not for 32 years, no. No, the last 10 or 15 years, it's really gotten out of control.
Do you have any critical time periods? I mean, the morning, if you sleep late, or if you'd like to sleep late, clearly is weekends.
It's all day. The Bobcats run all the time.
But it
7
isn't that they
7
can't
days a
be, it
week.
isn't that they can't be limited.
I mean, what if people work at night and have to sleep during the day? I mean, it's a residential area. I can't see a way. We have to change our lifestyle to cater to an illegal business here. It's been determined that it's illegal. It should not even be there.
Right, but the article is meant to legalize a business, and the business would be what the article legalizes, and if it was a business that, conducted operations between 10 and 3, then that would be the business that was authorized.
They haven't, the bylaws have been violated for 12 years. They have not obeyed one bylaw that's been handed down to them under the special permit. So I don't trust them. I don't believe them. Okay? I'm sorry. That's the reality of it.
But I mean...
I don't believe a word they say, that they're not going to start till 7 o'clock. They'll start at 6:30. I don't buy it.
Well, the permit would address the matter, and not believing that the permit would be, if there were a permit, the permit would have to be complied with. Because if it weren't complied with, operations would have to cease. And that wouldn't be desirable from the point of view of the operator. But all I'm saying, and this is, if people have particular, I mean, you have an issue with the whole ball of wax. You don't like any part of it. But if...
It's been extremely unpleasant living there.
If people have particular issues that they want to mention, it's probably useful to have those particular issues specified. Even though all the issues are combined into a general dissatisfaction.
So the letters that the abutters have submitted, are any of those points discussed here, or?
They're considered
Because-
as part of the public hearing.
Okay, I don't know any direct abutters that support this, unless there's someone I'm not aware of. I don't know any direct abutters that are in support of it.
Which reminds me, Alex, we should have those printed out for the second part of the hearing.
Right. I was going to say that we have gotten a fair amount of correspondence on it. There hasn't been a level of specificity as to particular aspects of the operation that are considered the worst, in severity. And it might be helpful if we had that information. Might not be, but it couldn't hurt if people were to specify what they like least.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Who else wants to be heard on tonight? One second, we have a,
Hi, my name is Melissa Walter. I'm at 292 Hillside Street, and I sent a letter in with some photographs, and some of my concerns are about the 53-foot trailers that tend to pull up to my house at 5 a.m. And then I have to disagree with you when you say they come down Forest Street. What they do come down is they come down Hillside Street because that's the first exit off of 128. So then they're turning and pretty much destroying my front yard. The trucks come so close to my property line that you can see the roadbed on my side of Forest Street. But if you look at the Forest Street side of there, it's clean. Because the weight, and I work in construction, the constant weight of those trucks is destroying the roads. And if you go up there, you can see right from here that the destruction stops right at the driveway. If you go past the Thayer driveway, you can see that the road is clean again. From their work yard, they plow out right across the street into my yard opening. So that when the snow melts, this is what I'm left with.
What is that?
It's all the debris and the stone from their work yard. So then, you know, I have a lot of pictures. I'm a photographer.
Did
So-
you, have you provided
I did.
copies?
I sent this,
Your letter,
yeah.
in your email.
But, you know, I didn't want to do overkill, but I have other ones. So I guess, you know, nothing in that site plan addresses 53-foot trailers, and this is not a neighborhood for 53-foot trailers. I mean, it just isn't. And I don't know how you address that. I don't know if you say they can only take box trucks for deliveries. And I am sort of all over the place. One of the other things, you know, people talk about the noise from the trucks and the bobcats. Isn't there an anti-idling law in Massachusetts? Mass General Law, Chapter 90, Section 16A. And I only know that because in the city of Boston, there are certain areas where we can't leave our trucks running.
We'll ask Mr. Dunn that.
Another question I had is, I know for a while they were taking in fill and waste on 53-foot trailers. One of the companies was Gillis Disposal, and I didn't know if that was still happening and where that product goes.
We weren't taking in fill from Gillis, they were removing it.
Well, when I would see them come in, they had, you know, large trucks with stuff.
No, they had trucks with dumpsters. So that was back in 2000, which was the main issue back in 2000, was once the town dump was capped, the town didn't make any provisions for homeowners or companies to bring their waste material in, so we were forced to bring it back to the nursery. So what we had to do then was bring in dumpsters, and then we had to load the dumpsters and haul them out. So that was the main component of the issue back in 2000, was the big compost pile that we had in that back quadrant.
Okay. So those are some of my things, and I guess the other thing I would say is I keep on talking to the town about very specific delivery dates. You know, what are the times that they can deliver? And nobody ever gives me, you know, a specific time frame. They have to deliver after 10, you know, before 3. They can only deliver Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I know the fruit center has very strict parameters on when they can deliver into a residential neighborhood, and it doesn't seem like some of those things apply here.
That's because I don't think is there anything in the permits having to do with times of delivery? Mr. Dunn?
Sorry.
come on up here and let me ask you whether there's anything in the permits having to do with the times and dates for deliveries.
Well, I think that none of the deliveries are permissible.
No, I mean, but did the Board of Appeals ever try and address it?
I believe that they did perhaps in 2002, but I'd have to look at the.
All right, in anything, get us copies of the decisions, and we'll take a look at that. In any event, if you have some thoughts as to when deliveries should be made.
Okay. So I think that's, I've been there 14 years, and I know that people say, well, that you knew they were there when you got there. And I did, and I really was happy that they were there when I got there. But what was there when I moved in isn't what's there now. I mean, it is a construction yard. It's their website says home improvement. So, to go back to the family farm from 40 years ago, the nursery, I'm fine with that. But having this commercial construction business in a residential neighborhood, it isn't really working.
But you think that in your time there, you have detected a noticeable increase?
Yes, and in my letter, I spell it out very
You-
specifically.
the levels. All right. That's good. Yes, sir.
I'm Phil Johanning, 23 Parkwood Drive. I'm immediately behind Thayer Nursery, and Matt Dunn is my attorney. I wanted to make one point about what Pam Lepori was talking about, and my neighbors, Chris and Tina Tevens, will also be, they'll find this a very familiar thing about it. What it is that the town does not enforce anything. We have Mr. Prondak, but if bobcats start beeping at 6 o'clock on Sunday morning, who do I call? There's no one to call. There's no one to call. I have kept a log of times when I have been woken up on Sunday mornings, and many of them are before 7 o'clock in the morning. I get up every day to go to work at 4:30. I'd like to sleep on Sunday, but it's impossible. Now, what all the neighbors found in 2002 was that they won the action, but they lost the war because there was nobody to enforce the decisions of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Nobody. Now, we went to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and we said that we thought that the commercial construction and commercial landscaping businesses were inappropriate for the site. The decision of the Zoning Board of Appeals at the end of September was that they should cease and desist from those businesses immediately. You just asked Maggie how many trucks were on the property, and she responded that there were like 5 dump trucks. Is that an immediate cease and desist? No, it is not. What happened after the decision of the Zoning Board of Appeals was that Thayer Nursery went to Norfolk Superior Court and appealed the decision of the Zoning Board of Appeals. But they went and asked that there be an injunction against enforcement of the Zoning Board of Appeals decision until the appeal could be heard. We all went before Judge Davis in October, and Judge Davis said, I don't think you're going to win on appeal. You don't get an injunction. You must clear those businesses from the property. Today, there are 5 dump trucks on the site. What does that tell you? It tells you there's no enforcement. Mr. Prondak has done nothing to clear those businesses from the site as was ordered by the Zoning Board of Appeals and by Judge Davis. They said to Judge Davis in court Well, what should we do? He said, I'd find another place to run those parts of your business. I'd find a commercial location where you can run those operations. But today, September wasn't last month. It wasn't the month before last month. It's been quite a while since September. And what we see is complete indifference on the part of the building inspector to enforce the ruling of the Zoning Board of Appeals. And despite Judge Davis's findings, we still have no enforcement. This is pathetic, and what it says is that no one can be trusted. Not there, because they were ordered to move the business and they haven't, and not the town, because they cannot seem to force their own employee to execute the order of the Zoning Board of Appeals. That is very sad, extremely sad, What did I do this for,
Well,
Can I respond?
sure. Come on, but you have to come up and respond at the table.
The question I was just asked by you was how many trucks do we own? So that's what I responded to. So since the cease and desist, the building inspector gave us until January 15th to move our landscaping operations off-site, and we have secured a lease in Stoughton, and we have moved our landscaping trucks and the excavator and 2 of the Bobcats off-site. What currently still is on site are the trucks and the Bobcats we use at the nursery.
Okay, well, in any event, we want to look at the various permits, because I don't know what the 2002 permit says. So, Mr. Dunn is going to give that to us, and we will take a look at it. But the building inspector, we rely on him to enforce our special permits. He's the town's chief enforcement officer. And we rely on him to enforce.
But he doesn't.
Well, I want to look at the permit and see if I can, I'd like to look at the permit. But I hear you. Yes, Ed?
Can somebody tell me if the judge ordered any other activities other than landscaping to be removed?
There was the construction component of it. There was materials that were used in connection with the landscaping business, as well as the equipment, and the Bobcat that was used in connection with those ventures.
How about the stuff in the store?
The stuff in the store,
Furniture.
I think that was some of that was the subject of the ZBA's decision, but not necessarily part of Judge Davis's order.
Thank you. Thank you, Will.
All right. Who else wants to be heard on, unless the board has any further?
I have a question. I'm understanding that you presently run the landscape business out of a yard in Stoughton. Is it your desire to bring the landscape business back to the property?
Yes.
Desire is to.
The answer to that question was yes, but come up to the mic when you answer a question, because otherwise the question seems to just remain hanging. You want to say something?
I was just going to say the same thing. The goal is of the bylaw provision is to allow the landscape business to be reintroduced at the site.
All right, who else wants to be heard on tonight? Bear in mind that we will be we'll be continuing this hearing in 2 weeks. We probably are going to hear the other articles first in 2 weeks, and then do this last. But if the level of enthusiasm for the other articles is not great, then we should get to it fairly promptly. Who else would like to be heard? Yes.
Hi, I'm Bobby Wigner. I am Maggie and Josh's sister. I've grown up in Milton and recently moved back about 4 years ago and live at 242 Canton Ave currently. I'm here tonight because I've been watching and listening the process of this happen both from the inside and out. And being here tonight really sort of makes me glad I'm here to sort of paint another picture of the nursery. I feel like the people who are here, it's an incredibly small sample size of the whole population of Milton. And most people, I would say, have had wonderful experiences at the nursery. I'm a clinical psychologist, I'm not part of the nursery, but, I feel very connected to it still, more as, you have 3 small children and more having my own family go and participate in the activities and meeting friends there for activities. And despite what has been sort of accused tonight, it's a very pro-social, pro-community type of place. And, you can go back and forth and people can say one thing, I say one thing, the other side can say another. But, I sort of encourage everyone to go up and check it out yourself and get a feel. Go to the events, go up and just see what it looks like, see what it feels like. From the inside, the nursery is not a huge profit-generating company, whatever, it's just not. And so whatever decisions are made here, it significantly impacts how Maggie and Josh run a business. And every incremental change you suggest has a huge impact. It's a small business. So paying extra money to house the trucks in Stoughton, that's a big thing. And to not sell firewood, that's a huge thing. And it takes them out of the competition for other, competing against other businesses in town. And so as board members, I feel like you really have to ask yourself, how important is the nursery to the town? You've heard from the butters and, clearly they have issues. And it's not to say that the nursery shouldn't change because, I think Maggie and Josh are incredibly willing to make some adjustments. But, you're representing the whole town. And if you ask around, most people have nothing but good things to say about the nursery. And it's hard to sit back and sort of hear all these things that, in my mind, are just not true. And it just seems outrageous to have this picture be painted that is just so not my experience. And I think not the experience of my friends and other people that I've known since moving back to Milton. So just kind of, asking you to think about, you can go sort of tit for tat and watch this ball go back and forth, but just think about, how important is the nursery to the town of Milton? What does it offer? Is most of the town behind supporting the nursery or is it not? And I think if you ask around and you take a look and feel for yourself, you'll see that most people, would want the nursery to be here and to thrive. And by making these, putting restrictions on the nursery really threatens their ability and potential to actually run a business. And it could very much drive them out of business. And if that's the goal, which, I didn't think it was, but hearing more tonight seems like that seems like what a lot of the neighbors who are here tonight voicing their opinion are going for, then, that's one thing. But I think the town wants the nursery to be here and to thrive and to be a viable business. And I think it has a lot of value. I mean, I moved back to Milton because it's, has a lot of small shops and a lot of small businesses and a very kind of nice community feel. And that's why I moved back. Initially, I wasn't going to move back because I wanted to be in a different place. But I'm really happy I did for that reason. And I think the nursery adds a very special piece to the town that would be significantly lost if it were to go out of business or things were to really change. That's it. Thanks.
All right, well, clearly, any sort of zoning amendment to the proposal would have to, would be collaborative effort in that the planning board wouldn't just write something that it thought was the way to run a nursery, but it would get input from the business and from the abutters. So I don't think anyone wants to propose unreasonable restrictions as that would basically just constitute a poison pill. I think that if there were amendments to be suggested, they'd have to be reasonable. So, in any event, the site plan is going to be, Gene, you're going to tell Bill that the site plan will be available in the office of the town planner. And, yes.
There's sufficient material coming in on this that I think we might want to consider setting up a page on our website for it, the way we've done with some of the other articles.
I was going to suggest that Ned might produce maybe 25 copies of this
You could do that.
and put them on the counter, in the town planner's office. And if we can, certainly if we can get it onto the website and get it findable on the website, that would be great. But I do think that some hard copies in the office of the town planner would be good. Yes.
Including perhaps a full-scale, not the reduction, Ned?
A PDF, when you open it up, you can put it to any size you like, so.
Paper?
Yeah, people would be able to make it larger to be able to see it more clearly.
I'll email electronically, and I'll have a full scale printed so that it's available.
But run some of these off, if you would.
That's the most I can do at my office, but I will.
Or this is, I think that this gives a pretty good idea of what you're suggesting, and this is a concept, and any concept can be subject to modification without any significant problem.
Could we get a copy of the zoning board of appeals decision on?
We're getting all the decisions from Mr. Dunn
Are we also going to get the one from the Norfolk County Courthouse?
and the court decision, please. And you can, if you send them to Bill electronically, fine, or send him hard copies. I guess, I don't know, I guess he'd prefer it to be electronic, yes.
Perhaps we could also get the records from the assessor's office, why it's being assessed as...
Tax information.
Yes, please, yeah.
Okay. Who else would like to, this is all for 2 weeks, yes. Yes, sir.
Hi, Mike Pellegri, 92 Forest Street. Don't really have a question, just wanted to maybe make a few comments to the table. My family's been on Forest Street for about 30 years now, and to me, their nursery is one of the reasons why we're in the neighborhood. We see them as good people. I believe that this situation here, to me, it's a little upsetting to see the neighborhood, which is such a good neighborhood on all sides. We got a lot of good people that live here, and we all like and we respect this neighborhood. And, never want to see the neighbors at odds or anything like that. But from listening to this, I'm feeling that a few issues maybe have grown, and now it's to a situation where we have lawyers in the room, and it's just become sort of a moving target, if you will. That's what I'm seeing as I sit and listen. My comment is more, it would be good if maybe someone could just take an overall look at this and say, listen, businesses grow over the years. Rules were put in place back in the 60s or so, as I just heard. And to stay in business, things have to evolve, things have to change a bit. But they have to be done the right way and respectful to the neighbors and such. And I think if people maybe just list out what their concerns are, what they'd like to see, and maybe what they'd like to not see, I think we have good people, and the people out there would would consider those efforts. They've obviously tried to put a chart up here on the wall, a posting, to accommodate some of those thoughts, but maybe we can just do a better job of getting this issue together rather than making it two sides, one versus the other. Those are the points I kind of just wanted to bring up to the table tonight.
Question?
Yes.
Can you hear the Bobcats?
I cannot hear the Bobcats. Honestly speaking, I'm about 2 buildings down from Pam, maybe 3 actually, and I don't hear
Never.
the Bobcats.
Never.
I have,
You never heard the Bobcats?
I've never heard the Bobcats. I have 11-year-old twins, girls. I have a son that's 8 years old. They walk down the street. I feel comfortable that they walk down the street. It's not a busy business construction zone. I'm a construction guy, been one all my life, and it's a good neighborhood. It's a great place for kids to grow up. It's a great place to go for a walk with the dog, and I think that's why we're all here.
When the trucks are in reverse going beep, beep, you can't hear that?
I cannot hear activities going on from that nursery on a day-to-day basis, no.
No
I can hear
noise.
trucks driving down the street when they drive down the street, but I wouldn't say that it's a burden of mine. It's a staple of the neighborhood. I really believe that this nursery is it's been here before, I think, all of us, and it's a good neighbor. They've been a good neighbor over the years.
I was up there before it was before it was a nursery.
Were you?
Yes. I knew Roger Thayer.
Okay, I stand
So-
corrected.
Thank you.
All right.
But you should have your hearing checked, though.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, I'm speaking honestly, that's a
Well,
question
in any
asked.
event, you make a good point that one would hope that whatever the town meeting does, it doesn't cause the neighborhood to split into opposing factions. So it would be desirable to figure it out. So give it some thought.
Thank you.
And come back in 2 weeks
I will.
with the answer.
Comment?
Yes.
I think it might help if in 2 weeks you talked about a cover on the material bins. You had some kind of display that, made that understandable, and maybe even some elevations of the berms. I'm assuming when you're creating this 4-foot berm on the south side, that it doesn't exist today, that there's probably level ground there, that doesn't exist as a berm.
Exactly. Yeah.
So maybe an elevation showing what that, anything you can to
Yep.
make it more visual and understandable.
Yeah, I agree with that. Also, Alex, you've mentioned that this concept plan is going to require revisions to the zoning that's currently in front of us now, is that correct?
Yes.
Are we going to see changed language?
We're not going to see it next time, I don't believe. Because I would think the board would want to. It would be the board recommending a change. So we want to know what the board, if the board did this.
I understand.
It isn't necessarily going
I
to do it.
understand if the board wants changes, we'll
Right.
recommend them, but this is originally a citizens article. So if the citizens article is going to be amended at the request of the people who put it forward to incorporate ideas from this concept plan, are they going to give us the language that would do that? Or are we expected to figure that out in addition to the comments that we
I
have?
anticipate that Mr. Dunn and Mr. Cochran will be cooperative with the board. And, but it would be, if the board decides that it can't recommend the article as written, which I think is fairly clear that the board can, but that the board doesn't want to recommend denial, which is an option, then the board would be required to say, but if this, and produce a document, we could live with this. And then it would be up to the town meeting, and people would, there would be a motion to amend, and people would go yay, nay on that, and if it passed, then there would be a discussion on what the board recommended. as the article. But I would assume, I mean, it would be two-pronged. It would be two-pronged. You get the article, the board would say, we'd like to recommend an amendment. The town meeting would then determine whether or not it wanted to change the article so that the amendment was the article under consideration, and then there'd be a discussion of that, and there would be a final vote, yea or nay, on the amended article. That's a possibility. It's not that might happen. Assuming the board doesn't recommend a straight denial.
Were you indicating earlier that perhaps in 2 weeks they'd come back with some amendments to this article as it stands now?
Well, Alex had suggested that this concept plan would require amendments to the zoning. So my question was, are we going to see the language that would do
Represent that in-
Yeah, exactly, and then
In
obviously.
2 weeks?
I would assume so. We're coming up for warrant committee deadlines for going to pass in relatively early March.
I
So it would
prefer
have
to
be 2 weeks.
see issues rather than language, because I think that we want to hear what people have to say about the article. And once we hear, if we determine that it seems possible that we can amend it, we should do the amendments after the hearing has been completed.
I don't have any problem with that with respect to our own amendments, but if the people, the citizens who have proposed the article are wanting to change it to incorporate the concept plan, I think they should be the ones to give us the specific language for what they've proposed. Then we can add that to our discussion of the article and perhaps amend that part if that's what we choose to do, or deny all of it if that's what we choose to do. But I don't think that it should be up to us to write the amendments for what they are wanting to do.
Well,
I think we
I
should be
think
writing our own
that,
amendments. If we choose to do that.
I don't see that asking Mr. Dunn to do it would be,
I'm asking the citizens.
or asking Mr. Corcoran to do it. It seems to me that it has to be a collaborative effort with the board, so that people can't say this is the developer's.
I'm not asking the developer to do it, I'm asking the citizens who proposed the article to do it.
Well, the citizens who proposed the article may like what they've done.
But they're now having an opportunity to hear from some of the abutters as we have, so they may want to take that into consideration. and make some amendments.
I'm asking you to clarify what you said at the beginning of the meeting, which was that it would have to be changed to
It
incorporate
would have to
this.
be changed.
Okay.
If the planning board, as I say, I don't think the planning board is going to be willing to recommend passage of the article as written.
I think that's fair to say.
I think
Yeah,
that's fair to
absolutely
say.
fair to say.
So the question is whether or not it would recommend denial, as some people
Right.
want, or whether or not it would recommend that the town meeting could pass something in an amended form. And creating the amended form is what we're talking about. It does seem to me that if we know what is going to be in the amendment, it's going to be a lot easier to do. And if we get something written now, I mean, it'll be fine, but we're going to have to work it over again.
Well, I wouldn't write it now. For one thing, I don't think we've heard from everybody who wants to speak. We've had a lot of material come in via email over the last couple of days.
Right.
I'm not sure all of us have had a chance to review. And certainly, we've been talking about the concept plan and the issues that the abutters have had, all of which are important. But we also then need to look at the language of the zoning
Well,
itself
if,
at our next
all right,
portion of the
look,
hearing.
if the people who submitted this plan want to submit something saying, do you think this is better, that would
That's not what- no, that's not
certainly
what I
couldn't
asked.
hurt.
What I asked for is if there are specific changes that they feel that need to be made to the zoning to allow the concept plan that they're proposing to happen, I would like to see that specific language. I'm not asking for a whole new article, I'm not asking for a free-fall.
What's there would permit the concept plan. The problem is it would permit a lot of other things too.
Okay.
And
That's
What-
where I'm getting. So he would already permit that.
Yes, this would be permitted under the zoning as written.
So it doesn't
But
have to be.
all kinds of other things would be permitted
Agreed.
too, and it would not be required. The concept plan is just one of a million concepts that could be,
So then you're talking about narrowing the current zoning to permit only that.
yes.
That's the clarification I'm looking for.
Well,
Excellent.
that took no time at all. Anything else? Board?
No, yes, why wouldn't the people who proposed this amendment, like I said earlier, take into consideration some of the things that came to light tonight and make
I think
revisions
it
to
would
it?
be, if they'd like to do it and come up with something, it certainly wouldn't hurt.
It seems to me that one of the major issues here is the hours of operation. It wasn't talked about specifically, but it seems indirectly, the hours of operation are probably a very key element here. It would be nice if the people that put forward this amendment would maybe discuss with the abutters, if that could help
I think.
them become more agreeable to the situation.
I think that you've got a good point. And I think that they undoubtedly will do so if they're,
Continuing
Thorough.
conversations over the next 2 weeks is probably a really good idea. I agree with you.
all right, now,
I can say wholeheartedly on behalf of Thayer and the supporters that we are wide open to engaging in those types of discussions if others are willing to join in.
all right, we hope that there are people of different views who are prepared to engage you, because having the planning board do it is never an easy thing for them.
You're reading my mind. It would be nice if the differing views on this would come together and say, well, if the hours of operation were restricted to this, and naturally the business has to say, well, it has to be viable. If it came to some kind of situation where that was agreeable, rather than the planning board trying to impose some thoughts of their own, it would be,
And you know, think noise buffering, because there are lots of innovative strategies that can be used.
You might also consider enforcement options such as, for example, and we've required them on site plans before, specific decibel levels at specific points. I mean, I'm not going to even pretend to be an expert on how that would work, but it would be worth looking into.
Who else wants to be heard? But it seems to me that we've heard a lot, and I'd prefer it if people would come back in 2 weeks. All right, now, Mr. O'Neill, yes.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Lucio. Thank you for hearing me. I am Pamela Lepori's son. I reside at 44 Forest Street, and I have been an abutter of Thayer Nursery for all 27 years of my life. I am just up here to reinforce the testimony given by my mother and the other abutters in regards to the difference that has taken place between when Thayer was primarily an agricultural entity versus now with the landscaping industry. There has been a big difference in noise, in traffic, and activity in the neighborhood over this time, and it does affect our daily lives as abutters and neighbors. The ability to enjoy our property and enjoy our yards has diminished over this time, given the disruptions from next door. And in terms of the board wanting details, I'm sure that over the next couple of weeks, you'll be provided with plenty of specifics in regards to how the nursery has affected us, and I'm just asking you to be open to reviewing those specifics. It seems a little unreasonable to reward a company who has been operating outside of the law over this time by revising the law in their favor, and punish the members of the neighborhood who have been there for quite some time and have worked endlessly to preserve the historic nature of the neighborhood. And in regards to Thayer's agricultural aspect, I think it is true. I think it is true that it is something that is enjoyed by the neighborhood. It's something that's enjoyed by the town. But I think the point needs to be made clear that the neighbors aren't looking to diminish the agricultural aspect of Thayer, the social aspect of Thayer. We are simply asking them, they have made the choice to pursue a landscape industry in their own right, and we're simply asking that they bear the consequences of this choice to pursue this business, just as every other landscape business in Milton has done. It seems unreasonable that us as abutters and neighbors should have to bear the consequences of their decision when they were able to operate as an agricultural company for so long. That's all.
All right, well, identify the issues as you see them.
Specifically?
I mean, you say in the next 2 weeks you're going to do that.
Well, I'm saying in terms of, you were asking for specifics, and it's in terms of going into
Well,
the
no,
law.
I think that we understand that there is noise, there's probably dust, but it's probably mostly noise. There's truck traffic, which doesn't impact you as much as some people, other people. It does seem to me I mean, you take the position that you don't think that they should be rewarded, but then again, if they are rewarded, you will want the reward to be as suitable for your interests as possible. In other words, certainly working against the reward is perfectly appropriate, but just bear in mind that they've been around a long time, and people may feel inclined to reward them. So you say, well, if you do, which I oppose, that's you saying which I oppose.
I'm sorry?
If in fact the town meeting were to do this, you would want the town meeting to do it with as little adverse consequence to you as possible. And in order to do that, you should identify as much as you can the adverse consequences.
Sure.
And they certainly would also serve to buttress your argument that there should be an outright denial.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes sense.
Okay.
Sure.
Perfect sense.
Okay.
All right. Well,
All right. Thank you.
hopefully we can move on to the next zoning article. Let's continue this until 2 weeks from now at 6:45.
We'll start all the zoning articles.
We'll start all the zoning articles. Now we will hear from Mr. Sullivan and Mr. O'Neill on another matter.
While everyone's moving around, Mr. Sullivan and Mr. O'Neill put out, we might want to explain at our next hearing that we've done a great job of explaining how our recommendation gets to town meeting.
Yeah.
Point of order, Mr. What, wait a minute.
Well, I'm trying to cover the airtime a little bit. You guys can hear me, right? They don't need to hear what I'm saying.
Explaining to them what the deal is.
I think it might have been a little confusing. Yes, exactly.
We'll do it better. We'll do it even better.
That's what I'm thinking. Just walk them
The
through it a
planning
little
board
bit.
is always striving to do better. until finally we get to Best.
Well, you know what they say about businesses. Businesses change or die, so.
Now, Frank, we took a vote at the beginning of the, we said, who wants to be heard on the various articles? And there was no one who raised their hand on your article, and that's why you're here at 8:45.
Where else would I want to be on a Thursday snowy night? Thank you for the invitation. Good evening.
Good evening. Identify the team here.
Will do. Thank you very much. My name is Frank O'Neill. I reside at 46 Columbine Road in Milton. To my left is my brother James
Jim
O'Neill.
O'Neill, a representative of 41 Pleasant Street.
My name is Paul Sullivan, I'm resident 21 Smith Road.
And how would you like to proceed, Mr. Chairman?
Well, you have introduced a zoning article.
Yes.
And what you intend to do
is
basically spot zone this parcel to, for condominiums.
I'm not sure it's spot zone, but I defer to you on that. Is history...
Okay, you want to zone this parcel, and there may not be other parcels, well, there currently could be, but,
Sure.
go.
Would it be helpful if I didn't know we had PowerPoint. Seems as though we'll be meeting in 2 weeks and I can bring up some technology, but to identify the parcel that we're talking about.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gene.
Okay. My brother Jim and I own a property consisting of 3 acres at 41 Pleasant Street, which runs, it's 3 houses down from the Ben's Cookie Factory on Pleasant Street, right off of Randolph Avenue. It's a long and narrow type site, and it runs from Pleasant Street down towards the town access road. There is a right-of-way at the end of our property, and our abutters would be Zazoulis, and he has that property under agreement for assisted living, 90 units. On the other side is the town land, which is vacant at the present time. However, the town is proposing a animal shelter there. And on the other side of the town road is the golf course, and the town owns vacant land over here also. So that is the locale. Okay. Leave that up there.
Right, and what you want to do is you want to zone this parcel for basically 11 condominiums.
Well, a portion of the property, Mr. Chairman, is from information, our mother owned the property. She passed away a couple of years ago, and the property consists of 3 acres, and it's currently zoned B and C. As an adjunct, the front 2 parcels we're proposing to do single-family homes, approximately 5 of them on that property. To the rear, we have a 1-acre parcel zoned approximately 40,000 square feet, and that can currently accommodate a one house. What we are proposing for that parcel, the B parcel, is a condominium development consisting of 11 units. We think that that property is the highest and best use of that property from a development point of view, and perhaps the town would agree that the highest and best use would be condominium development. With the changing demographics in Milton and the need to downsize and to locate, if you want to stay in Milton, we think this is a good opportunity to downsize and stay in Milton with the condominiums. We are proposing this article, and in so doing, it's imperative, if we move forward, that we have to get on board with the planning board, we have to get on board with the selectmen, we have to get approval of the warrant committee, we have to get approval of the town meeting, and then if we get a approval of that, then we come back to the planning board, and the planning board has rights for the approval of the project. So, as you can see, you won't be reading in the paper anytime soon that we're proposing a 40B. We've been in town a long time. Our mother was born in Milton in 1911. She bought this property. She and our mother and father bought the property in 1940. So it's been in the family for a long time. We are responsible individuals, I believe, and we're proposing a responsible development. And without the town approval, it cannot go forward, and we understand that process. We would like to put forward that we're, on this proposal, you're really tonight, looking at this article, from our perspective, you're approving a concept, and the concept is we have individuals that want to develop 11 condominiums. Do we want to do that, and what's the best way to move forward? We're not here tonight with a site plan. We're not here with building proposals. However, we think it's important for all boards to see a concept and give everybody the ability to have input into what gets developed there. With the approval of the, so what we're requesting tonight is it's time to move forward. It's time to start the process. And by that, we mean that we'll put together conceptual plans for the development, submit it to the appropriate boards, get input from, obviously, the abutters, people in Quarry Lane and the other abutters. We really don't have many abutters except for Zazoulis and the town of Milton. And get a plan in place with input from all boards, submit it to the, hopefully to the town meeting in May for approval, which would create a PUD concept, and in so doing, it comes back to the planning board for approval, and yeah, we look, big picture, we look forward to working with all the town boards and eventually with the planning board to get something positive done on this site. I'd like to have Paul comment on the development itself.
What we attempted to do, the language for the zoning article, was to create some flexibility for the planning board and allowing them to have significant input into the density, the types of buildings and the design of them. And we also purposely limited the qualifying area to 35,000 square feet, so that if there was larger parcels nearby, they wouldn't necessarily be able to build more units. On this parcel itself, it It has 139 feet of frontage on the 33-foot row that, the private lane that runs out to Randolph Avenue. And so it, under this zoning article, it requires 100 feet of frontage. So it would only be able to create one development at this site. I suppose there is a possibility that several could be created at the Zazula property, although I would assume it'd be pretty unlikely that he would take that path. But language could be added to the zoning article to restrict the number of developments, I suppose. You know, we carefully read other zoning articles that have been approved by the town, the planning board, and we try to patent this after those articles and to try to cover all the bases to ensure that the neighbors are protected and the town is protected. And, you know, we think we achieved that. We don't think it's set in stone yet, that it needs some additional input and work, but it's a good starting point, we thought. We'd like to work with the board to address any concerns that the board might have regarding the article.
And we do consider this article a working document and certainly not cast in concrete. And we look for the town's input and the board's input in terms of tweaking it to everybody's satisfaction. We need to create a win-win situation for this site and for the town.
Well, if you extended your road further, you could have you could have 3 lots out and back. So that's an option. It doesn't have to be condominiums. You say that this is a perfect site for condominiums. There is a wetlands question that has to be resolved. The frontage on this right-of-way, that's the right-of-way we found was unsatisfactory for use by the assisted living. And obviously, it would be no more satisfactory for these condominiums. They say that they're going to acquire an access to the landfill access road, but that has to be improved before it can be used as access. And you know that the right-of-way doesn't provide frontage. It's not an approved way.
Correct.
It's so this parcel A, has no frontage whatsoever, so it wouldn't qualify under this zoning. What I suggested was that this is the sort of thing, the idea of putting condominiums in here is not a bad idea, but I mean, why limit it to 11 condos? Why not put up 25 condos? You get more affordable housing. It would seem that these entire 3 lots, if they did, for one thing, they'd have access to this improved street going down to Pleasant Street, and then if they got a second access to the, if the dump road were improved, then it would be the site would have 2 access. So I did suggest that this is the sort of thing that the master plan committee should look at, and that this is the sort of thing which, if people, you know, get on board with the idea, you know, that it's a good idea, put condos up there, but don't limit it to 11. Why not the whole area?
Well, I think you have to appreciate, if you do know the area, the abutters are on Quarry Lane, and I'm not sure what the zoning is, but I think there's 7,500 square feet. However, some of them towards the end certainly have more than 7,500
Well,
square feet.
we want to know what they think of this.
Oh, clearly.
I mean, obviously, neighborhood input into a change like this would be important, and in fact, town input. And it just seems to me that this is something that the master plan committee could address. You know, there are so many changes that the zoning would need.
Can I address it? The master plan committee portion of that?
if you do it in a helpful way.
How's that for a
I'm going
qualifier?
to say, when have I ever not been helpful? First of all, I want to absolutely commend you for looking at different types of housing options.
Thank you very much.
It's something that I think a lot of people recognize are needed. I'm really glad that you're doing this. Alex has an excellent point that we might want to consider how you could use what's on this map as lot 4, 5 of parcel B and use the access to Pleasant. I think you have a good point that this is already a single-family neighborhood, and you want to make sure that you're not creating a situation for the abutters that they're going to find distasteful. Certainly keeping lots 1, 2, and 3 as single-family off Pleasant would go a long way to do that. I mean, there's buffers and all of that that we could look at. The master plan committee meets as a committee next on the 11th of March, and we'll be discussing, we're having our public forum on the 1st, so free plug there. But we've also got 3 roundtables happening in March and April, and it is very likely that one of those roundtables will have a focus on housing, because that is an issue that's come up over and over again in our meetings. And so I would certainly, with the roundtables, we're going to be, in addition to inviting the general public, we're going to be inviting people that have specific interest in the topics of the roundtable. So I will urge you to be at that roundtable and make sure you have the dates.
Thank you, and look forward to that.
But if you want, I'll check and see what our agenda for the 11th is, but that would fit in, I think, to your timing as far as going to town meeting.
Sure.
For you to talk with us about that
Yeah.
and see if we can make that happen, because we're cognizant that things are moving along separately from the master plan, and we'd like to keep something like this in mind as we look at what's happening. So, I think the idea of looking at all 3 of these parcels together makes sense if you're willing to look at that. And of course, we'll also continue to look at your original proposal for just that back
Yeah,
parcel.
we're certainly willing to look at all options. However, if you know the neighborhood, you
I'm
hit it.
Reedsdale, so you know I'm
It's,
sort of
it's
not
it's
too
a
close.
single-family area. And so when you take a look at how Paul could address this, how the front lays out with single-family homes, you can think of it as Craig Hill down by Metrocas.
Right.
I mean, that's a concept we have there for that, and I think it would be great for the neighborhood. I'd have to take the glasses off and take a look at the big picture of putting condos down in front.
Well, one of the ideas that we could consider is how it's sold is as a condo, but how it looks could be in a building that looks very similar to a single-family home.
Right.
So condos don't have to always look like the big multifamilies that we...
Clearly.
So, and that's something that, if you broke it up into duplexes or even a triple, but it's structured to look like a single-family home, maybe that's an option. So, and I don't know the answer just looking at this and throwing it out
Yeah,
tonight, but it's
yeah.
something we could talk about.
One thing we don't want to get, we'd like to move forward with this as quickly as possible, and it's
Absolutely, not holding
as a
you up.
working document. We own the property down across from 131 Elliott Street, the storefront there, and we don't want to get into that process with the planning board or with the town of Milton. We'd like to see responsible development done there, not fast track, but we'd like to see the planning board approve this and try to get on to the, present the proper information to the appropriate boards and get this onto the May town meeting.
Absolutely.
And then the whole thing gets kicked back, PUD, to the planning board
Right.
for the fine tuning.
Right. And some of what we're talking about now isn't necessarily something that has to be finalized before the May town meeting.
Yes.
As long as the zoning is flexible enough to accommodate it. So I think our interests as a board, not wanting to prolong a process, and your interests as a developer are probably reasonably well aligned. The question is, what does the zoning say? Are we comfortable with it? Are you comfortable with it? Is the town comfortable with it? Are the abutters comfortable with it? One question I have initially.
Well, is the neighborhood comfortable
I
with
said
it?
abutters.
You said abutters.
That's true. All right, neighborhood
I
as a
mean, he
whole.
is the
I'm sorry, I
abutter.
missed a level. I got the town and the abutters, but I missed the neighborhood. One question I have is, have you checked to see if this applies to any other parcels in town? Because I think when we looked at the assisted living, which has some very similar language, there were other parts in town that the zoning.
It applies to the assisted living.
Yeah, well, that's one of them, but are there other parts, other parcels in other parts of town? Or,
It applies to the 10 parcel.
and in other parts of town where there is a state road and access to a state road, not just right here.
But access, of course, as we've discussed, you can go by way of numerous streets as long as you end up at a stoplight.
Right. The other thing that's in here is that and we've done this in other zoning, is we've put that lots had to be in common ownership as of a certain date to restrict it, and that's not in here.
This lot
So
hasn't
what-
been created yet.
Can I finish? Before you throw out another objective? What I was going to say is that allows lots to be assembled. So somebody can look at this and say, well, if I buy that lot and these lots and those, I'm now assembled it and I now can meet it. So we'll want to look at, do we need to restrict this further? So just keep that in mind as you're pushing around.
And we're going to want to see if there are other areas of town that are appropriate for condominium development. Because this is, you know, if the neighborhood thinks it's great to have condominiums, why are there not other places? And it does seem to me that asking for this to be revised by the May town meeting is impossible. And it should definitely be on for the fall.
Well, it's too late for that, though. It's already on the warrant. So this is on for the May town meeting.
I understand that,
Right.
but this is as I say, it doesn't apply to this parcel. This parcel doesn't have any frontage. It applies to nothing.
So then the question for this comes back to the same thing that we talked about earlier, is do we say yes? Obviously,
I
we're to
think
say
that-
no.
I think
Do we
that-
say yes with conditions?
I think
or
that
do we
Thayer
say
has
request denial?
has a pressing need beyond this, even this little subdivision here nothing has been approved, nothing has even been started. Putting it on in the fall is eminently reasonable, and trying to rush it through for the spring is entirely impossible.
What areas are you concerned about that?
The zoning itself does not say what you're going to do. It doesn't give standards, it doesn't give guidelines, it basically throws it into the lap of the planning board to say what the planning board thinks is nice.
Well, within a short period of time, Mr.
And we
Chairman.
have been sued by developers who say, it's not in the zoning, who are you to tell us what to do?
Well, I do have a few additions that would have to go into the zoning before I was comfortable.
Well, I mean, the zoning needs to be rewritten if the concept is to be supported. I personally think that this particular site is not a particularly good site for condominium development. I think the St. Pius site would be better, and certainly that should be zoned in the same zoning. And just doing it so piecemeal is not a thoughtful master planning concept. And we have a master plan committee. Let's consider it. Let's do it right.
We just discussed that.
I understand that, but you think that in one meeting they're going to say,
No.
fine? I mean, you're going to want to hear from the neighborhood?
We're going to invite the neighbors to the next meeting in 2 weeks. We're going to send a mailing out. to
Oh,
all.
well, that's just great. Thanks.
You might want to talk to them before you invite them to the
No,
planning
we'll
board.
meet- we'll obviously meet before
But
that.
it's going to be on, it's not going to be on first in 2 weeks if you invite all the neighbors to come down and express their views on this.
I just trying to understand this a little bit. You own lots 1 through 8?
No, the other, as we discussed earlier, there are a lot of plans floating around. And that plan is a different concept. That plan there includes the Murphy parcel, which is contiguous to our property. And we have an understanding with Murphy that parcel can be incorporated with our parcel for residential development. That's a conceptual plan.
What do you own relative to land?
3 acres.
That's the Murphy property.
Yeah, I see what you can't find.
Jim, bring that aerial down.
Goes down.
What you own.
Correct.
And you want to put the condominiums in parcel A, what would the access be? This right away road?
Up to here,
So they have to go down the right away to get back to Randolph Ave.
or onto the access road, country.
Which goes back to Randolph Ave as well.
Correct.
Okay. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, I think you spoke earlier that you thought it was a plan of 3 acres.
So
That you like the concept of condominiums, and then a few minutes ago, you said you didn't like the concept. You didn't think condos would
Look,
work well there. What is that based on?
I'm suggesting that you need to combine your lots.
For what reason?
Because you need the access. You need that road as access to your condominium development. You don't have any access from the landfill road. All you have is this ridiculous 33-foot wide hill street. I mean, it would be good for skiing and even perhaps for ski jumping. But it goes right down to Randolph Avenue, and this right-of-way is not good access. We said it wasn't good access for the assisted living development. It's no better access for this condo. You want to go to the landfill. You've talked to a selectman who says, fine, talk to us. We might be able to reach an agreement. But it would seem to me you'd have to do an RFP. For that. I mean, it's going to take time. This is not shovel-ready. This is way far from being shovel-ready. And it does seem to me you're going to want to get a plan, and then you're going to zone your plan. But you do want 2 accesses.
Well, you have to start somewhere. The first, Marathon is 26 miles. You have to start with the first step. Tonight, we think this is the first step. You have an article presented in the town as a working document, and we're looking forward to working with the appropriate town boards to get a document that can be approved at town meeting in May.
Well, if I'm going to be working on their nursery, I'm not going to have a chance to work on this for the May town meeting. I mean, there's just so much I can do. Maybe we can hire a consultant to help us.
Well, if you gave us some specifics, we could perhaps
I understand
amend it.
that. If I were to rewrite the zoning, you could type it. I get it. It just seems to me that there's just too much. It's too much and it's too soon. And we have, October cries out for this one. It just cries out for it. It says, please put me on the October warrant. That's what it says, Frank.
However, time is of the essence. It's in the system now, and we'd like to move forward,
It's in the
perhaps at a
system,
slower
but you
pace.
don't have access. You don't even have a lot.
The
He doesn't
article-
even have a lot.
The article creates the lot at the May.
It doesn't create a lot. It just talks about something in the B zone. You could put in, and as you say, the neighbors may hate condominiums, therefore you don't want to put condominiums on Lot 4, but whether they're going to love it when you put them on Parcel A rather than Lot 4. I mean, if, as I see it, you'd have 100 foot of buffer along Lot 4. Half of Lot 4 would be buffer and planted to make sure the neighbors weren't impacted by your condo development. You'd have your driveway come off this circle, and you'd have Lot 5, Parcel A, and a little bit of Lot 4 as your condo development. And you'd probably have 20 units. And it would be a much better development than what you propose. It would.
I appreciate your comments, but I'm not necessarily agreeing with your comments.
Ed?
Frank, did you look at the assessors plan of this area?
I suspect I have.
Okay, what I was getting at is, all I see up here is white. I see nothing up, what's on up here. Seems to me that you should do it tomorrow, try to get a copy of the assessors plan. You might have to go to Randolph Avenue to get it. And show the properties going out to Orchard. Is it Orchard Road?
No.
Quarry Lane.
Quarry Lane.
Quarry Lane.
3 house lots there.
Yeah. I'd like to see the house lots of Quarry Lane up to here, and I think the whole thing will be on one assessor's sheet.
Yeah, well, it's, Bill, is that assessors or is that DPW?
That photograph is nothing funny, Frank.
No, I appreciate it.
I gave you a assessor sheet before.
Let's go all the way to,
Yeah.
it does, so,
It includes Quarry Lane.
Quarry Lane. I'd like to see that and have this stuff presented on that sheet. And show where the golf course land is and so forth. This is very incomplete. I think that's frustrating. It's frustrating me. I don't know about Alex, but it's frustrating me that we don't have enough to work with here.
Okay.
So I think you get another copy, and just make as many copies as you can. But that's what I need to go by. This is incomplete in my, to my eyes.
We will try to develop that material, Ed.
Why is it you didn't access the condominium development off the cul-de-sac?
We thought, again, we could, but we thought that with the residential development in the front, the, say, 6 lots would be phase 1, and then the back parcel would be the condominium development, and a good access is through the access road.
Trying to hide the condominium development.
I think I and you would be quite proud of something that could be developed there.
No, maybe that was the wrong choice of words, but you're trying to seclude it from the neighborhood.
Well, there really isn't a neighborhood. This really creates a neighborhood. When you take a look at the big picture, 2 years out, you'll have the assisted living on one side, the condominiums on that parcel, the improved access road, the golf course in back, and the town has a parcel that abuts our parcel, and there's rumors, there are plans of a animal shelter on that parcel.
Would that be shown in the assessors plan, show the area where they want to put the animal shelter to?
It does show it, it doesn't show, it shows that parcel, but it doesn't show the building.
I'd love to see that. That's why I said the assessors plan is vital to this conversation.
I will say that putting the, as proposed, putting the condo development on parcel B with the access road, even if it were an access road, I mean a full road at the moment, as opposed to right-of-way, is problematic from what I understand the market trends to be. And so I want you to think about this, because the trends are starting to be more and more for walkable neighborhoods. And certainly that right-of-way is, as Alex pointed out, a very steep right-of-way. You're not having that condo come in and access a neighbor. You've got, the assisted living, but I'm not hearing anything that integrates the assisted living with the condos such that there's some sort of walkable neighborhood that people can be moving around in. If you had it coming off the cul-de-sac, access off of that, presumably you'd have sidewalks going in to the cul-de-sac, you'd have people being able to walk out to Pleasant Street, down to Bent's or something.
Sure.
You've got more of an access to an
Yeah.
existing neighborhood. And I I'd encourage you to think about that.
Sure.
And think about what's attracting
You
people.
know, I did not put much thought into the right-of-way in the elevation. I mean, elevation, you can deal with. I mean, you can flatten it. You can do anything you want with it.
You can, except it's the right-of-way, and I think we talked at one point about having that right-of-way abandoned in order to do the assisted.
Well, that's
living,
as it
because
goes,
they're not going
through.
up.
I believe the assisted living's improving both ways. They're improving the old landfill access, and they're also improving the right-of-way.
Well, we didn't like the right-of-way. It's not an approved street. It doesn't provide frontage, and
And it doesn't provide any sort of.
it's not
walking.
safe.
Yeah. Certainly not for the people living in the assisted living, so.
It may be safe for the people living in Fuller Village, because they never go there, but it's about the only safety. The only safe passage is no passage at all. All right, do you have enough to work with?
No, I would like to clarify the board's position and give us some direction as where we should head. I understand what Ed's looking for, but as a board, I'm not sure what direction we should be heading in at this.
I think you
point in
should
time.
head to the master plan committee, that's what I think. And I think that you should understand that May is just not possible.
To people listening at home, this is not directed at you at the moment because Alex has already said this, but to people listening at home, if you want to do zoning articles, do not start in January or February to go to May. Start in January, February to go to October. It's just, and this, again, is not completely directed at you. We've had a number of people come to us over the year and say, but we want this for May, and zoning can be very difficult to do. So,
Duly
having
noted.
said that, this is now on the warrant for May. So either we're going to be recommending in May that it be returned to the planning board for further study and come back in October.
Committed to the planning board for,
Committed to the, I'm not sure you want to use committed and planning board in the same
it
sentence,
should be
Alex.
committed to the planning board.
Committed to the planning board for further study in October, or we're
A
going
study
to,
and a recommendation.
or we're going to recommend denial, or we're going to recommend approval with changes. Well, I don't think we're there to say which one we're going to do quite yet, but it is tight time.
I think that we're very close to saying, send it back to, committed to the planning board with the idea of bringing it back in October. And we'll work with you, but we can't work, it's February. It's February, yes.
I concur, Frank, with Alex and Emily, that you should shoot for that's all.
So should we go back and do some homework and not reappear in 2 weeks, and we will see you down the line a bit?
I would bite the bullet and assume that I think, are agreeable to having this committed to the planning board for further study, or study. And with the idea of bringing it back in October. You know,
And work with Mr. Clark, too.
Mr. Chairman, you also said, and Emily, I believe, that you think it'd be better used to use the 3 parcels or the 2 parcels in the rear rather than minimizing it to the 35,000?
I would think you would want to use the 3 parcels. It's off like, you know, I mean, you don't have any frontage right now. You've got a landlocked parcel that isn't good for nothing.
Well, up to.
Not even a house. You couldn't even put a house on it.
The assisted living goes forward, it changes everything, but obviously it hasn't yet.
But the assisted living isn't improving the right-of-way.
Yeah, they are.
I thought they were doing it just as a.
They're gonna pave it 24 feet wide.
They're
all
not
the way
doing
up.
it just as a secondary access?
Yeah, but they're gonna improve it 24 feet, as far as I know.
I don't think that was in the plan.
Well, we technically, we don't
Oh, there
have a
is-
plan. There is no
Yeah,
plan.
there's no
There was
special
Oh,
plan.
they haven't, well, I don't know, I don't think that we're going to approve anything that is going to encourage use of that right-of-way, because it's not safe.
Well, if they improved it to 24 feet wide, we don't know. We haven't seen a plan.
It's on a hill.
I understand
We've
it's
seen
on
the
a hill.
site.
Can I ask,
Yeah.
can I ask the glaring question is, where do you get rights to the right-of-way?
Which one, the 30-foot?
33-foot right-of-way, where do you get rights to it?
We'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay. But I don't think it matters, because it's not I can't imagine us ever giving you approval for 11 units coming down, shooting down a hill into Randolph Avenue.
Well, it's not even so much that, although I agree on the steepness of the hill.
When there's a
having
light
that.
right next door.
No, the
Well,
access,
it's not so much that.
the access was going to be down the old landfill road.
Yeah. But I think you are likely to have a better integrated into the neighborhood project if you use it. Just looking at it. And the form of the condos can be closer to the form of a single family. You know, whether it's one building with multiple roof lines, which can be done, whether it's several buildings together looking at that, I think you would have a nicer product at the end of the day using the cul-de-sac. So it's just something to consider.
Thank you for your input.
Well, thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much.
We look forward to seeing you after town, well, even before town meeting. We look forward to seeing you before the master plan committee.
It would be worth knowing if they're planning, and don't answer this tonight, it would be worth knowing if they're planning to go to town meeting and request that town meeting approve it, or whether they're in agreement with your suggestion that we go to October, and you may want to think about that as well.
Well, it would be nice if you, as I say, bit the bullet and made our task in May easier, but we can handle it.
Oh, no, we're coming tonight to start. We appreciate your input. We cannot get this development done without the planning board and the other appropriate boards. This has to be a joint venture, and we understand that.
All right.
Thank you.
I think, are we still going to come on the 11th, though? I think that would still...
I don't think you need come.
No, the master plan committee's still.
Oh, the master plan, yes.
Yeah, let's talk about that. We'll email back and forth over the weekend and see what would be appropriate.
Yeah, because I was thinking if we're going to change this and go in a different direction,
Yeah.
it might fit into Milton Falls, too.
Yeah, and I know you wanted to come to that as well. We couldn't do it before then because we had to get ready for the forum, but
Sure.
let's talk.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bill, are you signing the,
Oh, yeah, on our agenda.
What?
Signing.
should I bring the Mylars in?
With my law.
You had a thing.
You're talking about the Women's Club?
Yes.
No, it's not done because we haven't seen the peer review yet.
Oh, okay. On the drainage, you haven't seen the peer review?
The peer review on the drainage, yeah.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
All right, just tell the peer reviewer to get cracking.
We will. Thank you.
What?
I have it, it won't come up.
He has it, but it won't come up.
Mr. Chairman, on the
Should I bring him in or
27th,
just leave him here, or?
Uh,
Yeah, bring him in.
We'll do it next time.
on the 27th, in addition to our public hearings, which have just been continued, we were also to have a report from the master plan consultants. I
Yeah.
think we'd also scheduled it for the 13th. I'm wondering if you want to not have it on the 27th.
I
because
don't
feel-
want it on the
because
27th.
I feel that we're going to have quite a bit on our plates
I
for the
don't want,
27th.
at least we've got one fewer things on.
All right, I'll let them know just to come in on the 13th.
All right,
then.
so I'm agreeable.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn.
All in favor? You had something to say?
Did you have a report?
Anybody want to sign my papers for library trustee?